decided to focus my presentation on the 2 points, the challenge and the solution to remove this challenge and issue. But I also found pertinent to provide a participant with some technical background on or concept that can help you to understand more what is what the problem, water use and water management. So the first part of my presentation is a kind of background, technical term that you will see. Water resource statute, you have a couple of figures here. The total volume of water in Gambia River that goes to 3 or 2 to 8 billion cubic meters. It's very important. And you also have the total water withdrawal per sector, irrigation, industry, domestic, and so on. The annual water flow of Gambia, you have the annual maximum flow, that is 1,142 cubic meters per second, and the annual mean is 149. The minima is 7 cubic meters. You remember yesterday we were discussing about this 80,000 potential to be developed. And I raised the question, do we have water to develop this? You see, if you look at the total volume of water that flows from Guinea to the ocean through the river, is an amount of water, 3 to 8 billion cubic meters. But this is not enough to address the question. The last point is the flow rate, because in irrigation, what is important, the instantaneous volume of water, that is the flow rate of the thing. If you look at during the dry season, you have only 7 cubic meters. 7 cubic meters, the minimum. What can we do with 7 cubic meters? It's not easy. It means that you need to make a modelization, hydraulic modelization, to see actually what you can do. Water requirement is very important. How to manage water on the plot. This is what the water you need. This comes from the practice of SRI, System Riziculture Intensive. So it means you don't need a lot of water. You see, if you look at the figure, in one part you have only 5 centimeters of layer of water. The second part is 10 centimeters of water. That you need to put in. More than that, you will have a problem. A public agency who will be developing land and managing water. And it's the kind of things in Mali. If you have more than 1,000 hectares, like Jali Pachar, you have to set out to create an entity, public entity, that will work jointly with water user, and they will collect the water fee and use it for maintenance and repairing canals and other things. Okay, the last slide is I will recommend way forward. The recommended way forward is to develop a national irrigation policy and agri-water strategy in order to harmonize and regulate all intervention in irrigation sector. That's number one. Number two is to develop master plan for each irrigation area. Thank you.
one of the things he's mentioned, free riding is the problem. If people started paying, I think they'll be able to manage. And that can also give us the money to be able to maintenance. Because many times when they have problem, the farmer will come back to us. This is government infrastructure. But they are the one utilizing it. So those are one of the recommendations that we have. Daddy yesterday talked about traditional common free riding. If we don't control free riding in the tidals, in the gardens, community approach is an issue. So Bamba has helped us. And he talked about Samangalo Dam. I have my question because Guinea is upstream, we are downstream. To convince me that Samangalo Dam construction will increase flow in the Gambia, it needs to be debated because we are downstream. He talked about annual flow, that's an important thing. Many of the time also we are talking about the water, but during the dry season, if you go to Kuntau, you have brackish water. Modu Dam is here, you go to Bakadaji Gelan, there's salt water. So what salt water is also pushing. What do we do? In as much we want to use the water, the efficiency, this extraction should be monitored closely, otherwise salt water is also pushing. So I think Bamba has done the job for us. I think at times it's a language barriers he could have done better for us, but the presentation would be collected by the organizers and the parapeters will go through and teach out the key issues. Thank you so much.
Currently, Dr. Babukar Mane is the Director General of Africa Rise and the Regional Director for the CGIA in West and Central Africa since April 2003. He served as Africa Rise Regional Representative and CGIA country convener based at the Senegal Regional Center in St. Louis, Senegal, with administrative oversight over 7 West African countries. So that's the Director General. So we welcome you to the podium.
Ladies and gentlemen, I believe I shared during my opening speech yesterday, I mentioned the huge challenge that the Gambia is facing, particularly with regards to the poor performance of our rice sector when it comes to the total production compared to the need for consumption. We are only producing about 10% of what we are consuming. So definitely when you talk about those high ideals of getting rice self-sufficiency, when I look at the NRDS2, very, very impressive. But it's only when you really visually see the trends that you realize we have to take it very serious and then really be consistent. Because as you could see, the two graphs, you could see that when it comes to consumption, it's rising very fast, while the production is really going down. And if you look at the yield, that's where really the big problem is. Our yields are really very much coming down. But we saw that the yields improved a little at a particular point in time, and then they started collapsing later on. So I think it's important for us when we go into the breakout group to identify what were the reasons when immediately after 2008, when we had this cereal crisis, many countries, the yields increased and they continued increasing. But for the Gambia, it increased briefly until 2011, and then they started going downwards continuously up to the present. So we have to find out what happened. We did something right, but we could not maintain the momentum. So I think we need to have a deep dive into those questions and really try to find some of the answers. From the NRDS also, I called this table, which is showing the potential land available for rice cultivation across the country in the various regions. And definitely the figure is the outlook is very interesting because we could see that there is potential for huge land area expansion in the country. But as we've seen, it's really not so much of a priority when you look at what we are losing due to the low yields. If we are able to increase the yields even up to 3 tons per hectare, I think we will be able to make significant improvements in yield total production in a very short time. But there is definitely potential for area expansion. And as we saw, if I could just come back to the slide, you could see that the area, even in the area increased from 35,000 to about 86,000 hectares from 2008 to 2011. But then from then, it started coming downwards again. So that means there was a period where we had total rice area going all the way to 86,000 hectares. So even if 86,000 hectares, if you are able to get just 3 tons per hectare, simple mathematics is already more than 250,000 tons you can get. So now I think when we go to breakdown groups, particularly the team that are dealing with land development, we have to see what this potential area, where they are located, regions have been shown, but what is the actual area cultivated in each of these regions for ecology, and then what would be the contribution of the various projects that exist in the country. And we are not only talking about the government projects. We know we have partners also, like JICA, we also have the Koreans, we have the Chinese. They all have projects that actually have some land development component. We have also the private sector. So all that figure, we need to capture it here and really see what is the potential for growth in rice areas. Then for the staffing plan also in the NRDS, there have been some suggestions there also. But I think for me, it's a bit not ambitious enough. Because I've seen, as I have said, when we look at the size of the challenge we are trying to tackle, we have to be ambitious. If we are producing 29,000 tons and we need 275,000 tons, if we are not ambitious, we cannot get anywhere. So that's the reason why I think the staffing plan that they have put here for research and extension, when we go into the breakout groups, we really have to propose something to the permanent secretary and the honorable minister that really can work. We see what are the resources available, and then where we find out the resources are not sufficient. If the structure is what we need, then they can go to the development partners and say, please, if you really want Gambia to get out of this difficult situation, help us with this amount, because we already have a plan where it can be utilized. So the various, when it comes to the qualification, the areas of expertise that I believe for research is very important. Of course, varietal improvement is very important. But when you talk about varietal improvement, it doesn't necessarily mean creating new varieties in the Gambia itself. Sometimes all you need is really to be able to have a good system of identifying what is adapted in the country, and then you work with the specialists to do the dissemination of those adapted varieties so you have a good impact from those varieties. Then, of course, seed technology is extremely crucial to have the specialists who can be able to make sure that high-quality seed is available on time, but also at a cost that is available also to our farmers. Then the productivity enhancement also, we call them agronomists, but as we know, just not only simple agronomists, we have to talk about enhancing the productivity, but we talk about sustainability also, and at the same time also climate adaptation, resilience to the climate also is very important. All those factors we have to try to capture to make sure that the systems of production, their performance is increased, but then they are sustainable. So we really need experts in those various areas also. Then another area also sometimes we discount, that is communication. It's very important for our research team really to have a good communication team so that we can sensitize people about what we are doing, and also to be able to communicate very well to the farmers about performing technologies that need to be outscaled. Then for the extension services, of course, we need, we could call them agronomists again for sustainable enhancement of the production. Soil health, very important, and then also for crop health also. Similarly, the mapping also is very important. We could call them GIS specialists. It's very important for us to be able to know what exists out there, how can we manage it very well. So now we are very fortunate, we have specialists in those disciplines, and we should be able to capitalize on that. Then technology transfer, of course, when you talk about extension, is very, very crucial. We have specialists in that one. Market intelligence is also an area which, both for research and extension, is very important to know how are the tendencies in the market. Sometimes we are sitting and all of a sudden we find that people tend to like Saddam more than another type of rice. Local rice may come at the market and you find Saddam, which is imported, is going to be much more appreciated and farmers will be losing. So that's the reason why we need those kind of market intelligence to be able to know how can we adapt our offer to the demand. So those are areas definitely for a whole country, we need to have at least one functional seed processing plant. It's very important. So that's why we are saying that really it is possible to revise the situation in the positive manner, but we really have to find those formulas now to be able to do that. Thank you very much.
So I think he has mentioned very key things that needs to be done to help this country improve on rice yield. So I think that's the main point to look at. Because if we are serious as a country, we cannot be able to achieve self-sufficiency in terms of rice production by producing 0.6 tons per hectare. So we have to make sure that our rice aid and what needs to be done to be able to make things right, we have to work on that, and also make sure that we work on our varieties to make sure that we improve, close the yield gap, and also make sure that whatever we are sending to the market is what is demanded by the people. Because if it is demand driven, whatever you take to the market would be absorbed. So I think those are some of the key points that is raised by the director. Let's give him a round of applause again.
I'm going to moderate a very important topic, which is also my area of specialty, that's inputs. And of course, to present the keynote speaker, who happened to be my old boss for the past 20 years or more, who is no other than Dr. Saidou Ba. Dr. Saidou Ba is a Gambian nationality. He is presently the Rice Seed Coordinator at Africa Rice, and also the principal scientist responsible for seed system in Africa Rice for the past 25 years. He has experience in agricultural research and development with special expertise in developing and dissemination of new crop varieties as well as seed systems. He helped mobilize several multi-dollar rice value chain projects in several African countries. It is also gratifying from this meeting that Dr. Ba is personally identified by Giraffe through Coraf for the needs assessment of the National Seed Secretariat. Mr. Ba will share his experience with us. He's a doyen in the seed system in Africa. Dr. Ba, you are welcome.
What I'm trying to do here is just to raise some issues that I think we should be discussing during the thematic group meetings. So I'll be talking on input services and marketing, and I'll try to focus mostly on seeds and talk a little bit about fertilizer and pesticides. And I know our strong point in terms of, or the major challenge in terms of realizing the Gambian dream for self-sufficiency is one of the major issues is seeds. So I would want us to know that seed is important for agriculture, we all know that, and it's a kind of catalyst for productivity. And it serves as a crucial link in the rice value chain. Huh? Now, to maximize the potential of seeds, all these benefits I've been talking about, you need to have the appropriate varieties, okay? Because if the variety is not appropriate, even if the seed quality is good, you might not realize what you want to do. Because if you have a variety that is sensible to salinity, even if you get 100% good quality seed, if you put it in a place that is not appropriate for that variety, you are losing. So the first thing is we need to get the kind of varieties and then work towards the quality seed that we are talking about. Another important thing that we should be considering in the group is the fertilizer issue. Gambia is a fertilizer importing country, but at times importing and receiving, because at times we don't import, we just receive. But most of the time when we are receiving, we tend to at times, not most of the time, sorry about that. At times when we are receiving, we get the wrong type of fertilizer, okay? So you get the fertilizer and you realize that what I'm applying is really not necessary. So in our group, in this forum, let's try to identify the kind of fertilizer that we need for our rice. Whether we can do that today or otherwise, but it should be in the plan that this is the kind of fertilizer that we need for our rice. And I think also if we need to characterize our soils, there is the technical expertise available within the sub-region that can handle that for us. So I put subsidy in as a question mark. Now the kind of subsidy for me, I think we should do a kind of, we decide what kind of subsidy, whether it's going to be targeted, whether it's going to be 100%, whether it's going to be 20%. But what I can say is there has been some positive results where there has been some targeted subsidy on rice. I can take the example of Burkina Faso after the rice crisis in 2008. There was a special program to accompany farmers. The government intervened with subsidy on both, not only fertilizer, but seeds and other inputs. And there was a massive productivity increase over the years. So, and all these, I think, came out yesterday, environmental considerations, especially when you're talking about chemicals. We have the Gambia River. It's one of our major resources in the country. I think we should always be cautious about take environmental considerations into whatever we are doing in terms of interventions in the rice sector. If we check countries like Burkina Faso again, Mali, Senegal, and Nigeria, the private sector has come in to really help government in terms of seed and input supply. Okay, especially when you talk about quality seed. Government cannot do everything. In-house with the private sector, they put their own quality system. So government only comes to monitor. The government service agent does not need to go visit every farmer for seed production and input supply. So let's see how we can really support the interventions of the private sector. And in the Gambia, we are getting good interventions. Malo Farms is one of them. Salumbalo is another one. Zak is another one. Burwalong, Khalifa, a very young and dynamic fellow. Here, what we want to do is to make sure that any project intervention where seed is involved, we put the private sector in forefront to push out these activities. So what I will see for recommendation here for our group is it's crucial to reflect on the ethical and sustainable aspect of seed input and marketing. The benefits of quality seeds and inputs should be accompanied by responsible use and environmental stewardship. There should always be a balance between productivity and sustainability. So in conclusion, I would say quality seeds, inputs and marketing form the core pillars of modern agriculture. They are the engines driving agricultural productivity and food security. And then through effective research, innovation and marketing strategies and responsible use, we can harness the power of quality seeds and inputs to transform our agricultural landscape. And with that, I want to say thank you very much.